My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. These words, spoken by God, resonate deeply with those who face trials and tribulations. These words, found in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, offer a lifeline in our struggles. They remind us that in our weakest moments we can find strength through divine grace. The Apostle Paul, a man of great faith, faced a persistent thorn in the flesh. Despite his unwavering dedication, he was not immune to suffering. We don't know the exact nature of his hardship, but we understand the deep pain it caused. It was a source of constant distress and a reminder of his human frailty. Paul pleaded with God to remove this burden. He sought relief, hoping that his prayers would be answered in the way he desired. But God, in his infinite wisdom, responded differently. Instead of taking away the thorn, he provided Paul with the strength to endure it. He offered grace instead of removal, sufficiency instead of absence. This divine grace empowered Paul to continue his mission despite his suffering. This is a powerful reminder for us today. In our own lives, we may face challenges that seem insurmountable, but through faith and grace, we can find the strength to persevere. God's grace is not the absence of hardship. It doesn't mean that we won't face challenges or difficult times. Instead, it means that even in the midst of our struggles, we are not alone. His grace is a constant companion, guiding us through the storms of life. It is the presence of God in the midst of it. His grace shines brightest when the night is darkest, offering hope and light when we need it most. His grace is His empowering presence, His constant strength, and His unwavering support. It is the gentle whisper that encourages us to keep going, even when we feel like giving up. His unwavering love that carries us through. It is the embrace that holds us when we are broken. The love that heals our wounds and gives us the courage to face another day. When we are weak, we are acutely aware of our need for Him. In our moments of greatest vulnerability, we find the strength that only His grace can provide. It is in these moments of vulnerability that we experience the fullness of His grace. We see His hand at work in our lives, transforming our pain into purpose. God doesn't promise to remove our weaknesses. He doesn't guarantee a life free from pain or struggle. Instead, He promises to be our strength when we are weak. He assures us that His grace is sufficient, that His power is made perfect in our weakness. This is the paradox of faith. We find our greatest strength in our deepest dependence on Him. In surrendering to His grace, we discover the true power and beauty of a life lived in His presence. Our weaknesses are not something to be ashamed of. They are opportunities for God to work in and through us. Moses, known for his stutter, led the Israelites to freedom. David, a shepherd boy, became a mighty king. These biblical heroes remind us that God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. He takes our imperfections, our weaknesses, and uses them for His glory. We can all find strength in our weaknesses. Often it is in the moments when we feel most vulnerable that we discover our true resilience. These moments teach us lessons that we might never learn in times of ease. It might be in a physical limitation that teaches us patience and reliance on others. These challenges can open our eyes to the beauty of interdependence and the strength found in community. It could be a personal failure that leads us to deeper humility and compassion. When we stumble, we learn to empathize with others who are struggling, fostering a sense of shared humanity. Perhaps it's a fear that, when faced with courage, reveals a hidden reservoir of inner strength. Confronting our fears can be a transformative experience, showing us that we are capable of more than we ever imagined. Whatever the form, our weaknesses can become the very places where God's power shines through. In these moments, we can see the divine working in our lives, turning our struggles into sources of strength. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9 reminds us that God's grace is always enough. This verse reassures us that we do not have to rely solely on our own strength. In our weaknesses, His power is made perfect. It is in our moments of greatest need that we can most clearly see His hand at work. Let us therefore face our challenges with courage and hope, knowing that we are never alone. We are supported by a community of loved ones and by the unwavering grace of God. God's grace is sufficient, and His power is made perfect in our weakness. Embrace your vulnerabilities, for they are the very places where you will find your greatest strength.